Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Wargaming, and today we are going to be looking at the Clone Specialist upgrade for Star Wars Legion. And this is a little box set that I have very much been looking forward to for quite some time. Not only are we getting 4 extra personnel models to put into our clone faction units, but we are also going to be getting a individual clone commander that we can run as a cheap HQ slots. And perhaps even more importantly than both of those, we are going to be getting generic command cards for the Republic faction that can be used alongside any commander. So yeah, this little box is going to pack quite a punch, and it's going to give you a lot of different list building options in your collection. It's also going to make this video process quite complex for me because we are not only going to be looking at a new commander units, we're also going to be looking at some personnel upgrades and then also some command cards. But I'll try and keep it as brief and streamlined as possible. But let's go ahead and dive headfirst and take a look at our new clone commander when fielded as an HQ unit. So I just want to emphasize again that this clone commander can be used as a personnel upgrade in a squad, and he has a little upgrade card for that, or he can be fielded as his own unit. When you field him as his own unit, you will be using this command card, and he will come in at just 55 points. And in a faction like the Republic where you are constantly strapped for points, this is a very welcome addition to our list building arsenal, and it's going to free up a lot of points for you to invest in either operatives or heavily upgraded clone units, or just getting more clones on the field. And a faction with such awesome synergy like the clones, having more bodies on the field, having more clone units to generate tokens, and having your commander have that clone trooper keyword to synergize with them is a pretty fantastic feature. But after that, we're going to see that he has 3 upgrade slots, being a command, training, and gear slot, which in my opinion are 3 of the best upgrades you can get on a trooper unit, so those are all very much welcome. On the other end of the card, we're going to see that he has 4 health, courage 2, not too impressive, but something we'd expect, but he does have red armor, so he is decently hardy, but this is about what you'd expect from a commander that's just 55 points. He's going to have no surges, either defensive or offensive, which honestly isn't the biggest deal on this unit. And then he is going to have a speed 2 movement speed, which is normal. But here's where this unit packs a lot of punch in my opinion. His melee attack is going to be 2 red dice. That's pretty impressive for a clone trooper. And if you go ahead and throw tenacity on this guy, you could actually have a pretty aggressive melee clone commander. Although I'm not really sure if that's a meta I would ever run. After that, we are going to have a Commander DC-15 blaster rifle that's going to have range 1 to 3 with 3 black dice. And while that's not the heftiest dice pool, it is a pretty respectable amount of firepower, and it could do some damage against an enemy unit caught out in the open. So activating this guy for a round of shooting isn't something to be wholly dismissed. But we will move on to the keywords, and this is where the Clone Commander really starts to get actually pretty damn good. First of all, he's going to have the Bolster 2 action, which is going to allow 2 friendly units and range 1 to gain a Surge token. Now, we're Clone Troopers, we love our green tokens, anything that gives us green tokens is awesome. Now, it's not quite as good as Padme's Quick Thinking with her authoritative keyword matchup, but it still is a nice little booster to have, especially if you're not running those Phase 2 Clone Troopers. Always remember with Clone Troopers that it's a very good idea to have Surge tokens on deck for your defensive roles. But after that, we are going to have the Direct Clone Trooper Unit keyword. Now, that's going to allow you during the command phase to issue an order to a friendly Clone Trooper core unit at range 1 to 2. Now, that is actually pretty damn awesome. We all know that Clone Troopers have fire support. We all know that you can make these massive lethal dice pools when you use that fire support properly, and this commander is going to give you the HOV lane to set that up. On top of that, it's just going to give you more general board control and allow you to further make sure that you're activating the units you want active when you need them active. And having an upgrade like this is going to shine doubly so when you have commanders like Anakin Skywalker or operatives like Padme, where their command cards don't really activate a whole lot of troops. And this keyword gets even more interesting when you consider the Clone Comms Technician personnel upgrade, which we will take a look at later and talk about then. But in the meantime, we are also going to have the Sharpshooter 1 keyword, which is a very rudimentary old school keyword for this game, but it's a very hardy and welcome one. Of course, that's going to reduce defenders' cover by 1, which honestly means this individual clone commander is probably going to be hitting on par with those Phase 1 clone troopers. Now, I haven't done the math hammer for that. I'm sure statistically speaking he's going to come up a little bit short, but for a cheap commander unit to be this well rounded between combat and support abilities is a pretty impressive feat. So yeah, I really do like this guy's card. I was really expecting some sort of cheapo commander with some soft buffs like Inspire or something like that, but I really do think that we got a unit here that can change the meta of your list if you employ him properly. And he's definitely a whole lot more than the commander tax like you have in your bolt action platoons. And if any of you guys are familiar with that game system, you know exactly what I mean when it comes to taking commanders. But let's go ahead and take a look at some potential upgrades here. And I'm going to go ahead and preface it with, this guy is good because he's cheap. You know what that comes with. I don't want to load him up with upgrades. B1 Battle Droid philosophy, guys. B1 Battle Droid philosophy. Now, to save time in this videos, not just in the presentation, but also in the editing, I'm no longer going to go over every command card. I'm just going to recommend the ones that you should take and the ones that you should maybe consider. And just know that any that I don't touch on are ones that I don't think are worth taking, at least for the time being. Things may change in the future when new metas arise. So right off the bat, we are going to be getting new cards in these sets, and one of those new cards is a command card called Vigilance. And Vigilance is going to allow you to select either one trooper unit or 2 core units, and those unit or units selected are going to be able to hold on to a dodge token at the end of the turn. Now again, we're clone troopers, we love our green tokens, and it breaks my heart when I have to take those piles and piles of green tokens off the table at the end of the turn, just so I have to rebuild them again next turn. Keeping 2 dodge tokens, having them ready for you at the very beginning of the next turn is going to be awesome. Dodge tokens are extremely powerful in Star Wars Legion, and they will help keep your guys alive from some of the toughest, most intense firepower, and prevent keywords like Pierce from chewing through your guys. So at just 5 points, I think this one is going to be a major must-take in most of my clone lists from here on out. And honestly, I think it's probably going to get a points increase in the future. It just seems really, really good, especially for this faction. But after that, there's going to be a pretty sharp drop-off and recommendations here. If you're having issues with keeping your army from panicking, say perhaps you're going up against a lot of Imperialists like I do, then strict orders might be worth considering. This guy does only have Courage 2, and I've noticed with the Clone Captain Rex that can be a pretty big detriment if you're not on top of it. After that, I would probably skip over the rest of the upgrade cards here, but I will go ahead and talk about aggressive tactics since everyone is always talking about aggressive tactics. Aggressive tactics got bumped up from 10 to 15 points now. In a clone list, there are so many other ways to get surge tokens around your force, and that bolster 2 alone is probably going to nullify the need for taking a card like this. So taking this unit from 55 to 70 points for this one card is just not worth it in my opinion, and honestly I think they over-nerfed this card pretty hard. There's not that many command cards that activate up to 4 troops, and these specialist boxes are introducing a lot of alternative ways to get surge tokens, so I think aggressive tactics is going to kind of fall off the board in most list builds that you see. But let's go ahead and take a look at the training cards here. And again, I think this is one that you are going to be skipping a decent amount of the time. There are a few optional upgrades here that I would recommend as maybes, but I am probably going to be running this slot empty. Just to save points, he's a cheap commander, I want him cheap. But like I mentioned earlier, you could go ahead and throw Tenacity on him and get his 2 red dice melee attack up to 3 on a 4 wound model that's pretty easy to accomplish. And I think you could find this guy punching way above his points class in melee. But as a player who's often up against Imperial gun lines, I don't think I'm going to be doing that myself. I would like one of you guys to try it out if you're going up against those Vibroblades or something like that. Let me know how that goes, it sounds very spicy. But yeah, something worth considering, just not most of the time. After that, we do have Duck and Cover, which is affordable and will also help keep this guy alive. But I usually play with a lot of terrain. I can hide him if I need to, I can put him in cover if I need to. And I'm not too keen on taking suppression tokens on models that only have 2 courage. So if you're really concerned about keeping this guy alive, this is one to consider. But again, I probably won't. And next up we are going to have Endurance, which I would actually recommend if you're going up against a suppression list. If you pile this on top of strict orders, you're going to have a commander who can stay in the fight and keep the rest of your clones in the fight. It'll be a nice little morale booster, and probably help keep those panic tokens at bay just long enough for you to get the objective done. After that, we're going to have Offensive Push. Again, anything that gets green tokens for clones is welcome. Offensive Push is relatively affordable at just 4 points. I'm not the biggest fan of it being exhaustible, but on a support unit like the Clone Commander, it actually might work out pretty well, and taking a recovery action might not be a bad move at all. After that, we're going to have situational awareness, which just 2 points, and it's going to allow your dodge tokens to block critical hits also. If you want to stick this guy in cover and keep him alive long, or if you just have 2 extra points in your list and you don't know where to throw it, this is a decent option. I think this one's always worth considering as it's so inexpensive, but it really is going to get some extra utility if you're taking that Vigilance command card and keeping more dodge tokens on the field. So those are all my maybe options for the training upgrades, although I think I will be running that slot most of the time. There's a few situational things here and there that might come into play, but let's look at the gear upgrades for this lad. And right off the bat, I'll be quite honest with you guys, this is the one that I think has the least utility on this guy. I love the gear upgrade slot, it's great on trooper units, but on this guy I just don't really think it's going to come into play. You do have your terrain-based upgrades like grappling hooks, environmental gear, and ascension cables, which are going to help you get around the battlefield better, but this guy isn't an aggressive offensive unit, and I don't think those are really necessary on him. However, we do have the emergency stims upgrade, and at 10 points it is going to be pretty expensive, meaning I won't be running it too often, but if he's your only commander in your list, it might be a good idea to go ahead and throw emergency stims on him, as he is going to be able to stay alive an extra turn. And with that extra turn, he's going to be able to dish out 2 more surge tokens and give a free order to a friendly clone trooper core units. That's very big, and keeping him alive for just 1 more turn to do that could absolutely be worth those 10 points. However, this is something I would only recommend if he is your only commander, and if you don't have another operative alongside him. So for gear, we are pretty much only going to be getting the emergency stims as a maybe. However, I will take a moment to mention the portable scanner, which again is a new upgrade card that's going to be coming with these sets, and this is going to give you the Take Cover 1 ability, which can give a friendly unit at range 1 a dodge token. Now, usually for the clones, you do not need something like this. You just take a dodge token, and then you pass it over with your token sharing ability. However, this could be used to great effect when you pair this guy alongside a fellow Jedi hero, who's going to be able to use that dodge for deflect attacks, or alongside that saber tank that has that innate outmaneuver ability built into it on top of its armor. In those scenarios, a commander with portable scanner on him is really gonna shine, and he will likely spend his turns as a full-blown support unit, giving a friendly order with that direct keyword, and then bolstering, and then using the portable scanner. So yeah, I will go ahead and throw the portable scanner in with the maybe crowd, but again, only when you have the proper units running alongside him. So overall, I'm just going to go over and skip any recommended or suggested build theories, just to keep this video streamlined. Just run Vigilance on him, I think he'll be fine with just that. Everything else is pretty niche use, and you can backtrack in this video and go over the stuff we just covered if you wish to tailor him to those roles. But let's go ahead and cap this portion of the video off by giving him a traditional unit review. First of all, the superfluous stuff, what do I think of the model? Well, the Clone Commander is friggin' awesome looking. I love the model for this. I love that we're going to get options on how to build him. I love the little hologram. If you guys know me, I kit bashed a Clone Trooper a while ago with my first army that had a little hologram model in his hand. And while my initial clone army was heartbreakingly stolen from me, the fact that I will again have that hologram model in my army makes me very, very happy. But what do I think of the Clone Commander himself, the units, and how he interacts on the battlefields? Well, I think he is pretty damn good, and he opens up a lot of doors for list building possibilities, one that we just didn't have previously. Yes, Rex is still a lot better than this guy. Rex is also double the points. However, it could also be said that Rex isn't that expensive overall at just 90 points, and those extra 45 points from Rex give you a lot of bang for your buck, which they do. I agree with that. However, I also think running this guy alongside Rex is going to be a very potent meta that's going to be also relatively affordable, coming in at just 135 points. Add upgrades and you're going to have 2 commander units that are going to be coming in around the price of 1 Jedi. As I said earlier, he is pretty well rounded with his offensive and support abilities, and I could see him playing support for most of the game until you come down to your last few models in the late turns, and then he can actually turn on the heat and start picking off your enemies from behind cover with those 3 black dice and sharpshooter. However, he is relatively frail and he doesn't have the best courage. He's going to struggle preventing people from panicking, and if he is your only commander or operative in your list, your enemy might be able to decapitate your command pretty quickly. But that's where things like stim packs, duck and cover, and situational awareness come into hand. Just play him smart and you should be okay. Overall, I think he is an absolutely fantastic tool to have in your list building arsenal. I think pairing this guy alongside Padme or Clone Captain Rex is going to give you a whole lot more mileage for your clones than a Jedi like Obi-Wan or Anakin could. Also, free face-up order tokens, guys. That's just great to have. So overall, I'm going to be giving the Clone Commander a B+, and he's definitely earned that in my opinion. But again, that was the Clone Commander when taken as his individual unit in your command slot, which means we'll go ahead and immediately move along and take a look at the personnel upgrades in this kit, which can be slotted into any trooper unit with a corresponding upgrade. And it's only fitting that we go back to back and take a look at the Clone Commander when used as a personnel upgrade. And at 20 points, this is going to be a personnel that is going to be a combatant with the range 1 to 3 blaster throwing 1 black dice. And this will give you the Inspire 1 keyword, which is going to allow you to remove 1 suppression token from a friendly unit at range 1 to 2. It is also going to give you the Reliable 1 keyword, giving you a Surge token at the activation phase. And it is also going to become the squad leader here. Of course, that means he will be dying last as you take casualties in the units. Now, 20 points is not cheap. In comparison, a Phase 1 Clone Trooper that's going to be added to that personnel slot is going to be just 10 points. A Phase 2 Clone Trooper added to that personnel slot is going to be 13 points. That means he's going to be double the price of a Phase 1 Clone Trooper and 7 points more expensive than a Phase 2 Trooper. But you are going to be getting 2 pretty handy keywords here. The first one is going to be a Reliable 1, giving you that Surge token. Again, green tokens, clones want them, we got them. Here's another Surge generator. Throw this guy into a Phase 1 Clone Trooper squad, and they are essentially going to be instantly buffed up to a Phase 2 Clone Trooper squad. Throw this guy in a Phase 2 Clone Trooper squad, and they're going to be generating 2 Surge tokens every turn. They're also not going to have too many woes about being suppressed or panicked, as they are going to have that Courage 2 and Inspire 1, which is going to be chipping away at panic tokens as you receive them. Now, I'll be honest with you, at that point, that might be a little bit overkill with the Surge tokens, especially if you're running someone like Rex or Obi-Wan, who generates a ton of them for you. But in an army where you can share your green tokens, there's better chances of an upgrade like this being put to the full extent of its use. But where the Clone Commander shines, in my opinion, is with the Inspire 1 keyword. If you sprinkle a few of these guys throughout your lists, you are not going to have to worry about panic tokens. So if you're running a Clone Commander or Rex with just 2 courage, throwing these guys into your clone squads is a really good way to deal with that suppression. And if you are running those Phase 1 Clone Troopers, the Clone Commander is going to be a way better method of countering panicking than that Clone Captain would be. Sure, you won't be getting that training upgrade slot, but honestly, having Reliable 1 is way better on a Phase 1 squad than any of the training upgrades you would pay points to put on them. So what do I think about the Clone Commander as a personnel upgrade? Well, he's expensive. I don't like how expensive he is for a personnel upgrade. That being said, he is going to be a really good way to counter suppression lists, especially if you're running that Clone Commander as your commander, or Captain Rex who just has Courage 2. The extra reliable is nice, but I think you might be overdoing it with Surge tokens at that point. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong there. Let me know in the comments below how many Surge tokens is too many Surge tokens. So overall, while I do think this guy is just way better than the Clone Captain and blows the Clone Captain out of the water, and I'll probably never buy that upgrade set again, I do think he's a bit too expensive to include in most generalist builds, and I don't think I'll be taking him unless I know that I'm going to have issues with panicking and only have those Courage 2 commanders. So my ranking of the Clone Commander when in the personnel slot is going to be earning him a C+. Again, just slightly too expensive. But after that, we are going to have the Clone Comms Technician. And again, this is going to be another combatant model, as all the Clone Trooper ones are. And this model is going to come in at just 12 points. However, he will be giving you an upgrade comm slot, and you must equip an upgrade to that comm slot. You cannot take him and not upgrade the slot. So while he is only 12 points, which is very affordable, you are going to need to pay at least 5 extra points to get something else. So effectively, this guy is going to be ranging from 17 to 22 points. And now we ask the big question, what upgrade do we bring with this comms technician? Well, in my opinion, there's really only one option here, and there's really only one synergy. That's going to be the comms relay, which again is a card that's going to allow you to push your face-up order token onto another friendly unit at range 1 to 2. That's any friendly units. As we all know, there's a lot of cards in this game that affect only troopers. There's a lot of cards in this faction that only affect clone troopers. If you can get an order onto this guy and then comms relay it onto any unit in your faction, you're going to be doing some pretty impressive stuff with your command card maneuvers. In fact, if you have the clone commander as your HQ and then you have a squad with the comms technician sporting the comms relay, you can effectively push an order onto this unit and then push that comms relay and have a face-up order token on any unit in your faction throughout the game as long as these units are alive and as long as you're within range. And that opens up some pretty amazing options for list synergy, especially when you look at things like a saber tank with a linked targeting array on it. And at just 17 points, I think the Technician sporting the comms relay is a pretty powerful upgrade. Again, it's going to be one that's really fun to use, especially when you're building those crazy, non-competitive, casual, and thematic lists. But what about HQ uplink, you say? Everyone loves HQ uplink. Everyone is obsessed with HQ uplink. I'm not a fan of HQ uplink. It's expensive, it's exhaustible, and there's just better ways to get orders throughout your army. Now, it could be fun when you have someone like Fives in the unit and you can activate this squad and then coordinate over to another clone trooper. And if that's a gimmick you're running alongside something like Attack of the Clones or We're Not Programmed, you could seriously line up some amazing fireworks shows there. And yeah, it could be a lot of fun, but that's not really something that I'm too interested in, and 22 points for just a little gimmick like that is overpriced in my opinion. Not nearly as efficient as having a face-up order token on any unit of your choice throughout the game. So what rating am I going to give the clone comms technician? Well, he's actually going to be getting a C+ also. Look, I like the guy, that's a pretty awesome combo that you can pull off, but it does require a few things to set up. It requires points investments, and it's going to require a clone trooper squad to be a sort of lollygagging support unit that's just going to kind of follow someone else around, which may not really be worth the points in the long run. However, I think this guy does exist to make some pretty crazy list builds, and I think I'm going to see some really fun and awesome stuff pop up with that comms relay in coordination with the clone commander, especially when it comes to vehicle units and that linked targeting array. But if there's anything I missed with this clone comms technician or any of these other personnel upgrades, please leave a comment below, point out any synergies I may have missed, or point out what you want to do with these guys. But after that, coming in at 18 points, we are going to have the clone engineer. And this is going to be a combatant engineer, meaning he is going to have repair capacity 1. Traditionally, we see repair capacity 2 on the other droids, but because this guy has a blaster and is going to be rolling armor saves, he is kind of nerfed down a bit to only have capacity 1. Now, repair isn't something that you see used a lot in Legion because you don't really see vehicles used a lot in Legion. However, I do think that Fantasy Flight Games, or whoever is writing the rules now, is doing a good job at balancing out vehicles, adjusting the points accordingly, which could make vehicles viable and the repair keyword desirable. But I just don't think you're getting a whole lot out of the clone engineer. This is a much easier unit to break down than the other previous personnel, as you can basically do the math and see that you're paying for a clone trooper, and then you are paying an additional 8 points, or 5 points if you're in a phase 2 squad, just to add 1 wound back onto a vehicle. And sure, if you throw 2 of these guys in a phase 2 squad behind a saber tank, and you take 2 wounds back for just 10 points on that tank, it's a pretty good investment. However, you are going to have all of your units hanging out right next to that tank, a synergy that's even more constricting than that comms relay. So I do think this guy is a little overcosted and a little underwhelming, which is why I'm going to give him a pretty low ranking of a D. I may run a few of them alongside a saber tank in one of my matches, but for the most part, I don't really see these guys coming into play. If you're looking for someone to stay behind a vehicle and repair it, R2-D2 might be your better option here. I also gotta say, he's probably my least favorite clone model in this set. All the other clones are very cool looking. I'm not a big fan of that composite armor on the outside of him. And lastly, we are moving on to our clone medic. This is going to be a 20-point upgrade. Again, he's a combatant, which means he is going to be shooting and rolling defense dice. And he is going to have that treat capacity 1, much like the clone engineer, but for your unit instead of for vehicles. And again, this is going to be a model where you're just kind of losing out on your points if you're putting him into a phase 1 clone squad. In a phase 2 squad, you're essentially going to be getting an extra wound for 7 points. In a phase 1 squad, you're going to be getting an extra wound for 10 points, which is the cost of another clone trooper entirely. It's just not really worth it for the phase 1s. And for the phase 2s, I think it's only really worth taking if you plan on heavily upgrading the squad and maxing out your wounds. If you have a heavy weapons gunner in there like a Z6, or if you have a hero in there like Fives or Echo, using this medic to pad out the squad to get as many wounds as you can get before you start losing those big guys is going to be pretty useful. But again, these guys are very expensive, and if you're taking a few of them in your list, you honestly might just be better off nixing them and throwing in a whole new fresh clone squad. So what do I think of the clone medic? Well, in my opinion, he is a C flat. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy drops down to 18 points in the future, but for the time being, I think I will only be running him in those beefed up squad with Echo and Fives in them. But aside from that, I'll probably be excluding these guys from a lot of my lists. So with all those personnel upgrades wrapped up, you guys might get the idea that I'm kind of down on these personnel upgrades. I don't like them and I won't be fielding them, but that's not really the case. I think they add a lot of flavor. They're just all very situational. I'm definitely going to be grabbing 2 of these boxes off the shelf when they come out, and may consider getting a 3rd and 4th down the road, because I do want to try and run list with these models in them, not just for the clone commander himself, but you really do need to build the list from the ground up with a core concept and fit these guys in around it. You can't just go throwing them into every list and expecting them to work. Well, maybe the clone commander personnel would work out better for that, but the other ones, not so much. But that moves us along to the final part of this video, where we go ahead and take a look at the new command cards that can be used with the entire Republic faction, regardless of what commander or operatives you are running. So first up, for our 3-pip card, we are going to have Attack of the Clones. And this is going to activate 3 clone troopers, and when a unit is issued an order, it may gain 1 surge token or remove 1 suppression token. Yet again, another avenue in which we can get surge tokens, and a pretty robust method of removing suppression tokens. And if you guys recall my earlier videos, I talked about how the clones had a lack of ways to deal with suppression, which was a problem when you ran a Rex-only list. But I think this expansion alone gives us a whole bunch of tools to further deal with that, and I wouldn't really say that it is a problem with the clone army anymore. However, that is pretty situational, and probably is only going to come into play if you're playing against an Imperial list. So most of the time, you are going to be using this card to get 3 face-up clone trooper squads and get a surge token on them. And while that does give you a lot of face-up order tokens, it isn't really the greatest bonus right there. And if you look at the regular assault orders, it's kind of going to give you a little bit more utility by activating just 3 units and not just 3 clone troopers. And you pair that with aggressive tactics, or even just the clone commander's bolster keyword, and it's going to give you a little bit more versatility. Still, if you are running a mono clone list with Rex, a clone commander, and a bunch of clone troopers and nothing like vehicles, this is going to be a very good 3-pip to include in your list, especially if you run it alongside something like Or Not Programmed. You're going to have a lot of turns with a lot of face-up order tokens. However, if you are running a very diverse list, something that's going to have a lot of vehicles like ATRTs, Saber Tanks, or Jedi, things that don't have that clone trooper keyword, I would definitely probably run Assault instead of this. Although honestly, if I was running 2 commanders like say Anakin and Padme, I would probably be running both of their 3-pips instead of either of these cards. So while I don't think that everyone's going to be including this card in their hands, I do think it's a nice little tool to have in your tackle box, and will really come in handy with those Rex lists or the Clone Commander run list. But after that, we are going to have our 2-pip, which is Air Support. And basically how this card works is that either a commander unit or a heavy unit that has the Field Commander keyword may perform an airstrike attack at the end of their activation. And that attack is going to be range 4 to infinite, so you have to be at least range 4. If they're within range 3 of you, you're not going to be able to call it in. But that is going to be range 4 to infinite with 1 red dice, 2 black dice, immune deflect, and the beam 2 keyword. Which means, provided there's enough enemies clumped up into one area, you're going to be able to hit 3 different units with this 3 dice attack. Now, it's not extremely powerful, it's just a red and 2 black dice, there's no pierce, there's no impact, there's no blast or anything like that. It's definitely more of a card that relies on putting out that sheer volume of hits against different units. But imagine those 3 dice hitting 3 units of B1 battle droids. There's a good chance of you knocking out 5 to 6 B1s there, which is really going to help shave off that chaff early in the game, so you can direct your fire elsewhere with your clones. However, it could also be worth throwing this at your enemy's heroes if they're clumped up, which could get some cheeky wounds through. And as we all know, getting 1 wound onto someone like Grievous or Dooku early in the game is definitely going to help speed up taking him off the battlefield and keep him from ripping through your troops. So I can't really say that there is a designated target for this, but if you go in with a game plan, this card can help you out a lot, and it's just going to thin the numbers on your enemies. And if you're hitting your enemy with something like this, and then you have Rex bringing up himself and 2 other units with that recon intel, you're really just going to start the game off with a bang. but I definitely think this is a card that's going to be played earlier in the game due to its range limitations. And also, if you lose your commander, you can't use the card. So that's worth paying attention to also. But for the most part, if I had to choose one pip of card where the Republic is usually the most lacking in, I would say it's 2 pip. And having this one in your arsenal is actually pretty awesome, and I think you're going to see it in most lists that appear on the battlefield. Definitely a bang-up option here. But after that, we are going to have our 1 pip, which is Synchronized Offensive, and this activates just 1 vehicle. However, after that vehicle is issued an order, it can issue another order to a friendly clone trooper unit at range 1 to 2. And this was the first card they leaked, and I think we know why, because it's probably the most underwhelming here. It's really only good if you're running vehicles, and honestly, most people just aren't running vehicles like that. On the positive side, it does give you 2 face-up order tokens for a trooper and a vehicle unit for a 1 pip, and it does have a pretty long range. So if you are running a vehicle, it is a pretty good way to get your face-up order tokens there, especially when you consider that your 1 pip cards usually activate a hero and just the hero themselves. But again, I think this is very situational. As someone who has a collection of ATRTs and a Saber Tank, I probably will be running this. But I think a lot of other players who aren't too interested in these probably won't even bother. So if I had to rank these command cards individually, I would go ahead and give Attack of the Clones a C+. It gives you a lot of command and control, but it doesn't really give you a whole lot of benefits, and it is restricted to clone troopers, while other cards give more options for units. For air support, I'm going to be giving this card an A+. It's going to give you a lot of dice to throw around early in the game, and you're going to be able to chip away a lot of wounds off your enemy early on in that first turn when you're usually not really playing any other good cards. And lastly, we have Synchronized Offensive, which I am going to be giving a C-. It's very situational on which list you are building, but it is going to give you the options to get those support and heavy tokens out of your order pool and activate them when you need them to activate. And that brings us to the conclusion of this video. We wrapped up the Clone Commander as a commander unit, we wrapped up the personnel upgrades, and then we wrapped up the new command cards that are introduced to the Republic faction. All of which are very much welcome, and I am very, very excited to pick these boxes up off the shelf. I hope you guys all do too, but not too many because I'm sick of things selling out so fast, and if I have to wait 6 months to field these guys, I am going to be royally pissed off. But let me know what you guys think about this upgrade box set in the comments below. I think it's amazing. I think it's something that's more or less a staple for every faction now, and I'm so happy the CIS and Republic finally have it. But if you guys like this video, go ahead, leave a like, consider subscribing, turning on notifications, all that stuff, and until next time, take care.